Welcome back to our special coverage of the Sean Combs sex trafficking trial. The jury reached a unanimous verdict earlier today in the case against Combs, and here's a look at the breakdown of the charges and the verdict. Count 1 was racketeering conspiracy. He was found not guilty. That was the top and most serious charge. Could have faced up to life in prison. Then there was sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion as to Cassie Ventura. He was found not guilty there. And then there was count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution involving Cassie Ventura, and he was found guilty of that charge. Count 4 was sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and that goes to the woman known as Jane, or with the pseudonym Jane. He was found not guilty of that. And then there was count 5, transportation to engage in prostitution as to Jane, and he was found guilty of that. So 2 of the 5 charges against him, he was found guilty. 3 found not guilty. Now, just a short time ago, we also learned that Combs' bid to be released while waiting for sentencing was denied. And when making that ruling, the judge did say, in part, at trial, the defense conceded the defendant's violence in personal relationships, saying it happened in relation to Cassie Ventura and to Jane. Now, this highlights a disregard for the rule of law and a propensity of violence. All right, so what happens now? Combs faces a sentencing hearing on October 3rd. There is a chance that could be moved up. The defense did mention in that press conference they were going to ask to have it expedited. Now, while the law allows for a sentence up to 10 years in prison, the defense suggests a little as 21 months minus time served, which I believe is somewhere between 9 and 10 months. Prosecutors asked for a little more than 5 years. The sentence will ultimately be up to the judge. And also, he's often guided by federal guidelines. Now, as he left the court, Combs said to his family, "We're going to make it through this. I'll see you when I get out." And then Combs blew kisses to the 2 rows in the courtroom filled with his family and friends and said, "I love you all. Be strong. I love you, Mom." Again, buoyed by this court's decision and the ability to possibly be home very soon based on federal guidelines. Let's bring back in our guest. Joining us to discuss is criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor David Bruno. David, first and foremost, you heard the press conference there by the defense team, and they hailed it a great victory. I ask you, was this in fact a great victory?
Yes, for the defense team. I mean, without a doubt, they're in federal court, top counts, the racketeering and the sex trafficking. And certainly if he was found guilty of those counts, he would have been in jail for the rest of his life. You know, but Michael, we've all been talking about trying to smash these facts into these federal crimes. Because the racketeering, you know, it required the organization. It was the enterprise that had to be proven, that affected interstate commerce, pattern of racketeering. There were a number of elements that really weren't fitting straight within that bad boy records in these organizations. Also, on the sex trafficking allegations, you had former girlfriends. But what also was required there was that there's the purpose to engage in a commercial sex act, meaning of value. And then there also had to be the element of force, fraud, or coercion. So those were essentially the counts that he was found not guilty of. And that really was a stretch to get those fact patterns in. So it's not guilty on the top. There's those 2 interstate travel for the transportation of prostitution. But I think there's a worthy conversation, too, about domestic violence. Because say what you will about this particular verdict, there was a video that we all saw. That was the nucleus of the government's case. And that certainly could have been a state case right then and there if it was brought timely. There was also allegations of trying to get that video and paying off people to get the videos and things like that. But this is a good day for Puffy, P. Diddy and his team, his legal team up there. But it's not a great day for some of the people that experienced what they testified to. So I think it's a worthy note to bring forth on this day that we're talking about this verdict.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And one of the things that it sounds like could happen in this case is that this whole domestic violence aspect of the case, which again, Mark Agnifilo and this defense team admitted from the very beginning, they say, hey, look, we fess up to that, but we're not charged with that particular crime. Again, statute of limitations had passed, and that's one of the reasons we see him in federal court on these RICO-type charges. But that could come into play in sentencing. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So the sentencing guidelines are applicable. Now, the statutory maximum is 10 on the transportation, and there's no mandatory minimum. So it could be anywhere from no jail time all the way up to 10. So where the next level comes in is that the probation department of the court is going to do a pre-sentence report. And they're going to put together these other facts that could be enhancements to bump up the base levels. Because this particular crime that he's been convicted of is what we call a base level 14, which generally would be 15 months to 21 months. And as I said in the prior segment, the government filed a paper on the detention. And in that particular paper, they started to lay out what they are seeing as enhancements to the base levels. They argued because of multiple victims, not just Jane and Cassie, but 5 other victims that they're going to argue is grouping, which brings up 5 levels. They're also going to argue that the defendant was a manager and a supervisor, bringing up 3 levels. They're going to argue the obstruction of justice because he was trying to destroy the video of the Cassie interaction, up 2 levels. So these are some of the things that the prosecutor is going to start to argue and probation is going to start to investigate. And that's all going to come out in a pre-sentence report written by probation that goes to the court, also goes to the defense team and the prosecutor, and both sides will have an opportunity to argue objections or departures or that enhancements are not applicable. And the defense team today were arguing only 2 levels up. So they're saying, Judge, it should only be a little off the 15 to 20 when the prosecutors are trying to get up to 51 to 63, Michael.
Yeah,
so that's the next fight in the case on what guideline is applicable. And then it goes to the court because they have the discretion anywhere from 0 to 10, and they follow it, but it's discretionary and not mandatory, those guidelines.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And both sides are arguing anywhere between 2.5 to 5.5. The high end, of course, are prosecutors. The low end is the defense. And those arguments will be made in front of the judge. But as you said, he's not bound by that at all. He could certainly go higher. What's interesting is that, you know, as you look at this case, one of the things that I think went under the radar is because of the fact that he wasn't convicted of the highest charge, the racketeering charge, he is not subject, I think, to forfeiture. Had they found that this was a criminal enterprise, his fortune or anything that was used in furtherance of that criminal enterprise or as a result of that criminal enterprise could have been forfeited. So he could have been facing some serious forfeiture, and his fortune, the money that he currently has, could have been taken by the federal government. Without those convictions, though, I think he's on safe ground. So on that level, it's a great victory as well for Sean Diddy Combs.
Yeah, I defer to you, Michael, on the forfeiture. I saw the forfeiture count. Whether or not it's related and has nexus to the convictions, I'll defer to you. But, Michael, you know, there's another point that I think needs to be made, and that is we saw the team that was behind this legal team. I mean, we've seen it in other cases, too. You could think of the Karen Reed trial that just happened as well. What a team, right? There's so many. And right here, all of them got in front. And guess what? We didn't even see all of them, Michael. There's also paralegals behind and associates behind and secretaries behind. And you could imagine what the legal bill is and was for this particular case. And as I'm sitting here watching that, I am just, you know, I'm a little disappointed because not everyone could have the resources to have a team like that. And all across this country, while we televise cases regularly, there are hundreds and thousands across all of these counties that don't have the resources in the team that maybe if you don't have that team, you don't get that result. And that's an unfortunate part of our process.
Yeah, and they mentioned that in their statement. They said too often people are afraid to fight. I think another way you can say that is people do not have the money to fight. And they were very proud of the fact that in this instance, they did have that. They fought and they won.